They never really respected us. This was an attack on Alberta. Europe needs energy. U.S. needs energy. Alberta could be supplying this. We could be an economic powerhouse as a country.
Yeah.
But when they talk like this, like even Doug Ford saying, we're going to shut off Alberta oil. But he doesn't realize Alberta oil goes through the States and it comes up into Ontario. Like he's literally meaning shut off oil to Ontario.
Yeah.
Like when they just say those kind of things without realizing even the consequences of what they're saying, I think they're just angry and scared because they're not thinking well.
Well, you're giving Jan Arden and some of those people more credit than I would. Just I don't know if they fully think that much. I do think that there is such a mind virus that has gone through, especially and you're talking about the oil, like that to get all of Canada on the same page to allow our energy to be exported. Like logically, it's an amazing idea. It's natural and it's the proper idea. We have some of the cleanest energy in the world, if not the. You're talking trillions of dollars over a long period of time that's going to enrich Canada and Canadians. You're talking about raising the global standard of how we actually produce energy. Why? Because we have more money coming into our technology and it allows us to develop more. But that would mean that, and I use the word mind virus because Gad Saad uses this quite a bit on his book. And to talk about the parasitic mind, if you ever read that one. But when it comes to the whole idea of green energy, I'm all for, because we had a good friend Tucker on last week, and we're all for trying to find renewable energy, like if we can work. But I think people have been so duped into anti-oil, anti-gas. That's the devil that you'd have to have a completely change of mind and perspective, actually have a proper conversation.
Well, and one of the things we've been exploring as well was the amount of oil coming in on ships on the East Coast, Atlantic Canada, is an average of 3 to 4 full-size oil tankers every day.
Correct, down to St. Lawrence.
Every single day. Like, I don't think people have...
Middle Eastern countries.
I believe Saudi Arabia. Which I don't think people have a hot clue about. Like, it's just so hypocritical, the fact that we have it here, and it's just wild. Like that's something I was actually just looking at the numbers right now. They're so huge, the numbers.
Well, so we're kind of diving. I want to get back to Alberta and the process of independence and what that looks like. But before we go down that path, let's maybe analyze quickly, how did we get here? We've done it kind of in talking about energy, talking about maybe Western alienation and some of attitudes from mainstream media or the East over years. You look at the Trudeau government in the last 10 years, and even extends down to Pierre Elliott Trudeau, right, with his middle finger to the West all those years ago. Can you summarize just briefly what are the 3 or 4 main reasons? Because before you do, Canada, we operate as a federation. We're a confederacy. And that is contingent on the separation of powers between provincial and federal, that there not one is holding over the other, but there is a separation as to what and who does what. But I would have been arguing we're a federation in form, but not actually in function. And the balance of power is completely tilted to where Alberta's suffering. So can you summarize in a couple of points why Alberta's in the position we are?
Sure. So we'll start with the historical one. So Alberta joined in 1905, which is after Canada became a country of 1867. So we weren't at the table when the Constitution, the original one, was drafted. We kind of came after, and we were just added. And they thought we were just going to be a bunch of farmers and hicks and that kind of stuff before oil was found, kind of like Beverly Hillbillies, right?
Sure.
It was like, wow, we didn't realize that you're going to have all this wealth. And they never really took it seriously from that point on. But historically speaking, when they learned that, this is when the transfer payments scheme was put into place to try and make it seem like the haves and the have-nots exist in Canada, to actually literally move the wealth out of the West over to the East. There was a politician at the time who literally said that. We're going to use Alberta's money to fund the expansion of the East, the industry, the factories, and make sure that we can build the East up. So they did that, and that's exactly what they did. So historically speaking, they never really respected us. They just thought we were just going to be farmers and cowboys, and that's it. But then we became wealthy because we have these resources. So historically, we want to fix that problem. When you look at the Senate and even the Supreme Court of Canada, 3 Supreme Court members have to come from Quebec. Traditionally, 3 comes from Ontario. That's 6 out of the 9 right there. 2 from the West, which includes Northwest Territories, and then 1 from the East. So we don't even have good representation or fair representation when it comes to the Supreme Court. The Senate's appointed.
A good point.
The Senate's appointed. So if you look at the Senate, And what's weird, and I'm just going to sidestep on this one for a second. The media talks about these pain points that we bring up, but they diminish it. They say things like, the Senate's not really powerful anyway, so don't worry about it. Well, okay, well, if that's the case, let's rejig it. Let's make them elected. Let's go ahead and do something like that. So historically, we were just all our wealth was being drawn out, and we kind of played along. We're like, oh, okay, let's just try and help the East. Let's help build Canada because we can all collectively benefit from that. But we haven't seen it reverse.
Yeah.
Okay. So historically would be the first point. Currently, well, when we're talking about things like being able to enter markets, being able to move our product all the way to the East, yes, they are bringing oil tankers through the St. Lawrence, but we can't have it on the West Coast. The bill that stopped that literally said, we can't do it on the West. We can do it on the East, but we can't do it on the West. So clearly this was an attack on Alberta. Our guns, our parental rights, our way of life, and even God has been removed from the House of Commons, how they tackle things, and they really don't listen to us. And also currently, the election's over by the time it hits Thunder Bay. So it's the East that picks our leaders. And even people like Poilievre, who is a Calgary guy, he doesn't hold a seat in Calgary. He held his seat for 20 years out in Ontario because he knows where the power is and he knows who he needs to work with. So we've been ignored. So that's the current issue. And then the future issue, to give you three main points, is, well, what's our future going to look like if we continue with the current system? If we don't create a new deal? Well, I can tell you, population growth in Ontario, Quebec is higher than Alberta. More people are literally going there, which is tipping the scale of representation. We won't be able to catch up. So when Danielle Smith comes out and says we need to double our population to 10 million in order to get more representation, that's what she's talking about. We aren't growing as fast as out east through immigration and other means. So the representation scale keeps tipping in the wrong direction. And this is why we think a republic with elected senators and judges might help fix this issue with us if we can kind of address those. So historically, our wealth has been going to the East. Currently, we can't enter global markets because we're restricted. And our future doesn't look very good if we continue to do this. So those would be the three main reasons why I think Alberta is really pushing forward to changing the deal. So if we can't do it within Canada, we are strong enough, we are large enough. We would be the 97th most enriched nation if we actually became our own nation. We would be in the top per capita on the GDP in the globe. There's very few countries that would have the same type of wealth as the nation of Alberta would have. So we've reached maturity. At this stage, Alberta can stand on its own 2 feet. And I think this is why you're seeing so many people upset, because we may encourage Saskatchewan, Manitoba, northern BC to do the same thing. Because we're no longer a young country. We're a mature country now.
Is there any traction in Saskatchewan and Manitoba?
Yes. Yes, Saskatchewan, there's a group called the United Grassroots Effort, and Nadine Ness is leading that one. She'll be a guest on my show at one point to talk about this. Northern BC, basically anything other than the cities, they're in the same boat. They would like to see economic development. They'd like to see less restriction. Like, I'm not sure if Canada knows, but interprovincial trade is even restricted. Like, you can't buy wine out of BC.
So crazy.
There's a lot of restrictions put in place to stop us even inside of Canada. So when people say elbows up, shoulders back, Canada first, or Team Canada, they're not even realizing within Canada we can't even trade and do things. So these are all, the pieces of the puzzle that I think have come together and given us the opportunity to either change what's going on here in Canada, coast to coast, or break it up.